Hey, welcome to the Resilience Movement podcast. And we have Ron Covenetz here, who's going to talk about resilience in business. And welcome, Ron. It's great to have you here.
Thanks, Donna. Really nice to be here. Thank you for having me on today.
And I
Awesome.
see that in Melbourne, it's obviously still quite cold. It's cold here. If you could see my feet, you'd see I've had socks and slippers on.
Well, two beanies this morning have gone down to one.
And there you go, as the day goes on.
The scarf's in the bag. So there you go. But, beautiful, but stunning days, I must say. Stunning days.
Yeah. And it's really interesting because being able to do these Zoom calls and putting it up on the podcast is awesome because, you really get to still connect with people. So that's great. I really appreciate you being here.
No, pleasure. No, the Zoom's been our life over the last couple of months. So, I don't know where we would have been without technology.
This is true.
Yeah, we would have been in real trouble. Anyway.
So as I said to the listeners, it's resilience in business, which is what the resilience movement is all about. It's resilience in life and business, and especially with what we're going through now. So tell me a bit about yourself and your business and how long you've been in this line of work.
Yes, Donna. So I've been in layman's terms, a commercial finance broker for probably about 12 years. So what we do specifically is we source finance for business owners or people in business to purchase an asset that they use in business. So that could be a car, a truck, a trailer, a computer, a printing press, a wine press, anything that's used in business. So I've been broking for about 12 years, and I was counting the years before we came on. So about 30 years plus in the finance industry.
Wow.
which is a bit scary when you think of it, and a bit of a break in between broking. Before I started broking, I worked in the golf industry for about 7 years.
Right.
So,
are you a good golfer?
No, not at all. No. I certainly love the game, but I haven't played for a long time.
I'm a golfer's nightmare. Because I just think it's the most hilarious game and I'm just out there to have fun. I don't think I've ever taken it seriously. So I really...
And I think I've said this before to people. It's probably one of the only ball sports where you don't use the ball as momentum because the ball's stationary. So that's why it's so much of a mental game, because people think about it too much, and that's the problem. So, but that was a lot of fun. I worked as assistant manager at one of the big golf clubs at the time. But yeah, a lot of fun.
Excellent. So the reason I wanted to have you on here as a guest is because you work with many different businesses, so whilst you're a broker and you're helping people finance things, that's in all facets of business. And, I think you've said a client is they make wine and then there'll be other big equipment and machinery. I'm not sure if it's farm machinery ever, but I know that like cars and computers and all that kind of stuff. And so you see and have seen over this time of a pandemic, lots of different businesses have to make some really hard decisions, and also you're trying to navigate some of these significant changes. So I thought that this was really relevant for you because of having so many different types of clients in many industries. So first of all, I want to ask you something. What are you looking forward to most about the remainder of 2020? Because we're almost at June, so we're almost at the midpoint. So what is it that you're looking forward to?
That's a really good question. From a business point of view, going back to a bit of normality would be really nice. One of the challenges that we've had is the way that financiers per se have worked with clients during this time. A lot of the information that was put out by the government early days in regards to stimulus packages have probably been, in what I do, a little bit misinterpreted at operational level at financiers. I will give you an example of that. So obviously the government put out that clients could actually defer their payments for a certain period of time. And we've found that there's been two ways that that's happened. Is that some of the businesses that I work with had to shut their doors straight away, right? i.e. cafe owners. I have some event businesses, so they were out of business overnight.
Yeah.
Right. So they rightly so took advantage of the stimulus packages that the government put in place, and we had a lot of clients come to us to help with their deferral plans with finances.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had some businesses, and this is probably more in hindsight now, that made the decision to defer payments when their businesses were going okay. Right. I think looking back at it, they thought they would outsmart the system to say this is a really good opportunity to save some money and get some cash flow.
Yeah.
And I've had the instance where I've had some clients come back to me that have deferred payments that want to get some more finance.
And they can't.
And that's created a real challenge. So I think there's really two thoughts. There's people that had to do it because it was the only way they were going to save their business.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, there's some business that probably tried to outsmart the system, and have found it really hard to get money. I have one particular client at the moment that's looking at getting another $80,000 of equipment. They've got to bring all their payments up to date. They've got to restart their payment, their regular monthly repayments before the funder would even look at lending them money.
Yeah. So and I guess because this was all unknown, wasn't it? You know, there was
absolutely.
No rules. The rules have been created.
We didn't really know. Like, obviously, a lot of people panicked. You know, everyone thought the world was going to end. And yes, you're right. Some businesses have obviously had to close. Some businesses may not reopen, which is, again, and as I was thinking about coming on today, that's also part of resilience. It's a resilience that a business owner has to make a really, really tough decision to say, we cannot continue in business.
Yeah.
Right?
Which is really tough.
Absolutely. And it's they just need to be honest with themselves. And that's a really, really difficult decision. And that, even though that decision is affecting their livelihood, I still see it as actually quite courageous and quite resilient to make that that decision that, okay, we've spent 12 months, 2 years, 20 years building a business, and all of a sudden, really through no fault of our own, we've had to close down. So, but yeah, it's been pretty crazy. And the finance world, one thing that's really surprised me is that, you know, we're talking about some of the big four banks here that we deal with. Their systems and processes have really been found out during this crisis.
Right, which is a good thing.
Well, a lot of them, some of them have an offshore facility, so, and they had to close down. So the biggest challenge that we have at the moment is timeframes. Like if we have an application that we give to a funder, it's it's at least a week before they even get looked at. Which in our space, in what I finance with equipment, is a long time.
Yeah. So lots of delays. Can I ask you, from a personal perspective, what have you missed most in the last, say, 3-4 months?
Ooh.
And I think I know what you're going to say.
It's actually quite interesting because it some of it's actually suited my lifestyle a little.
Yeah.
Right. Because I basically work on my own, so I wouldn't go and see a lot of clients anyway face to face.
But there's something you do most mornings, though, wasn't there?
Oh, well, yes. Well, I have one of my rituals is have coffee with a close group of friends that we've come to know each other over the last few years.
Yeah.
And that's actually that was one of the things that helped me get through difficult times, because it's, you're talking with a group of people and you're just, talking anything about anything with them, and that's actually I actually quite enjoy that. So I've actually missed that, and some of the people that are in that group I haven't seen for 2 to 3 months. So
And that's part of that connection, isn't it? Like when we connect with people, so we can work on our own and work autonomously and, really be productive. But when you don't have that connection, and that's been one of the great things about Zoom is still having some sense of connection because you can see people and talk to people and laugh. And that's very different to being on the phone and staring at the wall, for example.
oh, we're very social animals. So,
Yeah.
and like I said before, I would have hated to have gone through, obviously, COVID-19 without the technology that we have now.
Yeah.
It'd be a totally different beast to what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't been able to see my parents for quite some time, so being able to FaceTime them was really powerful,
Yep.
especially on Mother's Day because that was my father's birthday as well. So yeah, the technology's certainly been amazing.
Yeah,
So
and it's actually quite interesting. I'm also part of a weekly networking group, and that's we have 30 people in that, so it's actually quite interesting to do that on a Zoom call where you've got that many people. And it just keeps in touch, which is fantastic, And I've really made a conscious effort to stay in touch with people and to connect with people, clients and friends, just to check in, how you're going, that kind of stuff. So, and that helps me as well.
Yeah, that's right.
When you're not seeing them.
Yeah. So you have given me, the listeners a bit of information about, how this has impacted, but I have some specific questions that I wanted to ask you. And so the first one is, in your industry and as a small business owner, what have been some of the impacts of not only COVID-19, but we also had the fires leading up to the pandemic. So what would you say have been some of the impacts for you?
Probably, I'll touch on the bushfires first. Probably not directly as impactful directly to what we do from the bushfire point of view.
The other issues. Oh, sorry, Donna.
Oh. And this is one of the things, we have a few tech problems sometimes.
You right? You got me back?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hello?
Yep, I've got you.
Okay. I can't hear you, Donna, sorry.
You can't hear me.
I've got you now. Sorry about that.
Excellent.
Not so much the bushfires, but with coronavirus, there's been a massive change on how funders assessing applications. There's a lot more information that we need in relation to putting an application together. So that's probably been the biggest thing. So a lot of the policies that they used to have with lending, they've actually taken off the table. So that's made life really, really interesting. And also the timeframes. Like I said, probably a week to get an approval for a client and probably a week to get a settlement. So that's probably been the biggest things from a funding point of view has been a challenge. And obviously some of the funders won't lend to the businesses that close down, like cafes and beauty and gyms, events. And it's unprecedented. We've never been through this before. So everyone's been flying a bit blind by what the best way is to do it.
Yeah. And of course, anyone who's on the internet, on Facebook and everything, you see some of the stories and how hard it's been. And especially in the time where people have had to shut down. I know that I have a few friends who are speakers, and of course all their speaking gigs for the rest of the year were gone, but they could do some over Zoom and so forth. And I know one of my friends said that doing these virtual seminars and training things is doing his head in, because he just doesn't like doing it via Zoom. He's very much an interactor with people. So okay, so has this affected your business specifically?
Absolutely. I think the main thing that I'll say on that is some of the funders, if a client ticks the right box, regards their setup, like ABN registration, GST registration, and they're buying something like a car,
Yeah.
a lot of funders would have, you'd basically say a tick and flick approval process for something like that, like no financials. So a couple of funders have taken that off the table. So all of a sudden, we've got to go to a full application stage. And full application stage for even something as small as a motor vehicle to get money for, a lot more information is required.
Yeah.
So we've lost a few transactions to motor car dealer finance people. They don't sort of seem to play at time. It's made it a little bit harder for us to compete in that space.
Right.
So yeah, definitely we've lost.
Oh, I keep losing your sound, Ron.
Oh,
It's doing a buzzing noise. I don't know why, but yeah, I'm not sure. And it could be my internet out here on the farm, which was a bit funny yesterday. It was good today.
So it's so that's one thing that's affected us. So, and also some of the businesses that I have, we can't get money for because they're obviously in a situation where they've had to close their doors. So I work a lot in that sort of winery industry, so they've been affected reasonably heavily.
And what about your mindset? So, obviously changes in your business, and when you have close relationships with clients, how has this impacted your mindset, and what did you do if it was I guess negatively impacting it? Because our listeners who are small business owners really want to hear about, how did you, if this was really getting to you, because other people's lives are also impacting on you from an emotional level, like we all care about each other. I've got friends that have businesses and we all care that we're doing well. If this impacted you, what did you do?
It's a really good question. I will give you an example. I have a client that runs a trophy engraving business, and he basically works in the sports industry. So sporting clubs, sporting associations. So he basically lost his business overnight.
Yeah.
Right. So we did a deferral plan for him with a funder, and he sent me an email yesterday morning, and he got a really aggressive email from the funder, basically saying, look, we've given you 3 months of leave. What are you doing to make up the payments? You need to start making double payments, all that kind of thing. And it was probably it was an automated message, but he CC'd me on an email and showed me that email. And there was no human connection in that email at all from the financier. So,
right.
And our business, your business, is built on relationships. So we do have connections with our clients. So, okay, we don't know them personally, but we still feel for them in what they're going through. And he said, look, I'm not working. I've got no work. How am I expected to pay? Show some compassion, what he was saying. And that I was really affected by that. And I thought, well, what can I do to help him as a conduit between himself and the funder? So I have a good relationship with the business development manager at that funder, and I actually rang him. I said, "This is not the way to do business. It's very cold." So I CC'd him on the email, and he came back to me and said, "No, look, it's not good. It's not good enough." So, I suppose to answer the question, you really feel for the people who are going through the hard times. I have a winery client that they had to close their business because part of their business is events and part of it's a winemaker. So I sort of felt compelled in a way. So I've actually been ordering wine from them. So they're selling their wine online. Yeah. So you want to give something back. So it's certainly at the outset, I thought, how are we going to continue with business? How is business going to look? What are we going to do? And as you know, I do a bit of work with a mutual colleague that helps with mindset. And I think it was really important to stay positive and just be honest. So look, we can get through this. Yes, business is going to look different. Yes, people are going to be in a bit of trouble. We have to be there for them. We have to help them where we can, and just be upfront and honest with people. And that's what I do on a daily basis today. If I have an application, I will tell them, look, it's going to take a week. We need to get this information. So I think it's really important to stay positive, but to stay actually real and not be.
And it's interesting if we go back to that financier, and if they were like, people are just not being logical. In fact, this has quite been a subject all week for me. It's been something that's coming to the forefront. And if you think about, if sporting events have not started up again, and I think in fact they only start this week for the main football games and so forth. And, so if this particular business had to stop business because, the financier would know what kind of industry they're in. They're not silly. There is no logic to that. Hey, by the way, you've got to start doing double payments now. Well, hang on, I couldn't even manage single payments, and now you want to put that pressure on me. So that can really push people to, the edge of going, what am I going to do?
Well, he did say to me that, if he was at all in a mental health situation, people could, you don't know how you're going to react. Some people might get an email like that, and that might, tip them over the edge.
It's the straw that breaks the camel's back.
And I don't think, it's actually quite interesting, Donna, because I don't think there is common sense anymore. Not in what I do. It's it's pretty black and white.
Yeah, well, in fact, as I'll tell you a funny story before I ask you the next question. Is I'm, as you know, I'm doing a fundraiser, and at the end of the year, I'm going to shave all my hair off to raise money for what's
such a shame to lose all that beautiful hair, Donna.
It'll come back. It'll grow back. But and there was a post the other day in part of this group, which is called Australians Anti-ICE Campaign, and it's really to educate young people in schools. And they're not funded by government. They have to find all their own funding, and that's why I've decided to do it, because personally I'm affected by that with my son.
Yep.
Anyway, there was a post about, what should we do? How do we get the information out there? How do we stop this epidemic? And one lady said, well, we should, maybe if you tie the child up and don't let them out of their room and stand at the doorway with a gun. And I had to, I don't normally, but I had to respond and say, I actually can't believe what you have just said. And it's not that simple. And first of all, you can't have a gun. And then someone else had this stupid remark about hanging the dealers. And I'm like, well, we don't hang people. Like, come on, people. Can you be more logical and come up with some solutions here? And I think for me, that's what resilience is all about, is being logical, but saying, what can I do? How can I bounce back from this? How can I solve this problem? And we're really having to do that in business right now, aren't we? Like, what else can I do if I can't do that? If I can't open my cafe? And we've seen across, I think I shared something with you in Melbourne, a business that made food. They then started making free food to deliver out to the homeless. Like, brilliant.
Yeah.
And they have the resources to do it. So, that's an awesome thing. But my next
I think you're right. And one of the things you mentioned about what I would sort of do differently, and what was resilience. And I think the lesson that I've learned is social media and media are no good for you. I think our mentor, she did say to me, she said, well, you've got to try and get off that, because it's very, I'm not quite sure if toxic is the right word, but it's people are just very open with opinions that are just a lot, like you say, illogical and not right. And we need to, I run my business to try and help people where I can. There are times when we can't do that. And we have to be honest with people about, look, we can't help you, or the current circumstance, we cannot, they need that information, or the client might not have that. I think
Yeah.
we have to have some compassion and empathy with how we treat people at all times, not just in this point in time.
Mm.
And you develop, I think you develop resilience by looking after people that way, because people will then talk to you about their issues and about their problems, and that so you have to, you're being open to discuss that, and I think that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree. So, you were talking about things that you would do differently. And so what would be something, on reflection of what's happened, what would you personally do differently now, knowing what you know now? Hindsight's amazing.
Well, that's a good question. I think initially when things sort of started falling over, I think I sort of did question myself a bit about, am I resilient enough to get through this as well? A little bit of background. As you know, I went through cancer in 2011. So that for me has built for me a bit of resilience as well. But you tend to be in that situation. You tend to be reactive rather than proactive when you're going through a treatment program. So I did have to, dig reasonably deep to say, okay, look, this is unprecedented. No one has gone through what we're going through.
No, that's
The
right.
president, funny story, the president of our association did a podcast to us early days, and he said, the good thing about what we're going through is there's two things. It's a 100-year event, and none of us have been through this before. And the other side of that is none of us will see it again. So
Yeah.
we no one knew how to deal with it, even at the government level, like regardless of your political persuasion, who would want to be making decisions at that level for all of us?
Yeah.
So that's a really tough gig.
And the saying of success leaves clues. We've never successfully done this before, so we don't have any clues. So yeah, you're right.
Everyone's running, by the seat of their pants.
Yeah.
So I think probably it took me a couple of weeks to sort of just reflect and go, well, how am I going to deal with this?
Yeah.
Because I've got all we did for the first 2 weeks was take phone calls from distressed business owners.
Yeah, which is again emotionally distressing.
Absolutely. And but it was in the end, you go, okay, I am their touch point, right? They rely on me for information.
Yeah.
And we're here to help them.
Yeah.
Is what we did. And probably ever since that time, look, I've just carried on, and my own personal thought is, what can I do during this time to help, number one, grow myself, and number two, grow my business. And again, that's part of resilience. As I said before, people have had to make tough decisions about their own businesses, which is,
and knowing when to reach out. Like, in all seriousness, we have, I think we struggle to say, hey, I'm not okay, I need help. Even though, you can say to someone else, hey, if you need help, reach out. But we generally struggle to say, hey, I'm not okay, can you help me? So, and I see that generally with my son, my father, lots of different scenarios where people just don't reach out for help. So
do you think as a society we're getting better at that though?
Well, I asked the question, we have this day called Are You OK Day?
Yep.
And we can put all over social media, are you okay? And, but when someone comes back and says, I'm not okay, do people really know what to do with that? And that's the question I often have. I mean, I'm trained. I know what to do with that. And I know that I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a doctor, but I know that there's lots of resources out there and how I can help someone find the resources that they need. I mean, to a certain degree, I help people with different strategies and resilience and so forth. But I think we're getting better at talking about it, but I'm not sure that everyone knows, what to do if someone's not okay, or even to have the conversation when you know someone is not okay. Can you initiate that conversation? And I think we're still struggling to do that to a degree.
Absolutely. I think we're certainly better. I think what probably frightens some people is they don't know how to if the answer came back, I'm not okay, people don't have obviously don't have the confidence to deal with that. What's the next step of that process?
Yeah, and I think that needs to be talked about a lot more.
Yeah,
So
and that's why you doing your work here is so important for people, because you're at least identifying. People might say, okay, I'm not feeling good, and I'm not as resilient as what I think I should be.
yeah.
That's why your work is really important, because you are broadcasting to the people that there is help, and there is a way forward. And I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess that's why, only yesterday I put a post out there, because this is the 1 year anniversary of me off on my journey on the Camino. And I've put a post out there that, said a year ago, I was broken. I felt like a failure. And, and you don't put it out there going, oh, wow, I'm really excited to put it out there. You put it out there because you want other people to know you can be broken, and you can come past that period of time and things will start to look better. Things will improve if you take action. Now, my action might have been a little extreme for some people. But but that's what we do. So tell me something. If people are if they're in business and they do need equipment, and who should they be speaking to if they've never had a broker?
Well, I thought about this question. The people that are flying at the moment in business are accountants and bookkeepers.
Yeah.
And they've
Zoom.
Sorry, yeah, and they've probably been a bit of a lifeline, because obviously clients through
Oh, I've lost you again, Ron. I don't know what's happening.
Oh.
So I've missed your complete answer. So who should they speak to? So I know you said that, accountants and bookkeepers.
Yeah,
I think
accountants and bookkeepers have been in the firing line, dealing with their clients to navigate through the various government stimulus packages.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's been really important. So there's stimulus available, so the people that qualify for that sort of stuff should get it. Stuff like that's always going to be probably rorted in some way, shape, or form, but you can't stop that.
Well, they've already reported that the whole superannuation thing has been a bit rorted. Some people have, I don't know the details, but they've falsely gotten hold of some people's 10 grand that they were allowed to access before the next financial year, and so forth. So yeah, there's always going to be that issue, isn't there?
Yeah, and look, as far as what I do, I personally think my mantra is that obviously we do it for the clients, and we make the process as simple as possible.
Mm-hmm.
At the moment, it's probably not as simple as possible as what we'd like it to be, but I always maintain I'm not quite sure how a business owner deals with a financial institution themselves, because they'd go spare, so that's the thing. So I think a good a good broker from any side of things, whether it's a mortgage broker or whether it's a business broker, I think they're really good people to have on side. You know, whether you
Mm.
use them or not is the person's own decision. But
Yeah.
I think in these times, you know, like the financial people, you know, a really good accountant is really paramount.
Yeah.
I have a lot of good colleagues that are accountants, and they've put some really, really good information out during this time.
Which is
Webinars,
super
you know,
important, isn't
like
it?
what you're doing, educating people about what's available and how to go about it. And I
Mm.
think that's really important. I think that really shows that they care.
Yeah.
And again, like with bookkeepers are putting everything together for their clients. So you know, to get good people on your side, you know, whether it's a good lawyer or a good trainer or a good mentor, I think that really helps with building people's and clients' resilience. It really does, rather than
Yeah.
doing it on your own.
Thank you, because you answered my next question about how important is resilience in business. And I also appreciate your comment about, you know, things like my podcast and other people's podcasts and information is really vital to helping supporting people. So I was actually surprised that I look at the stats and my podcast, I think last week reached India. So I was super excited about that. So
Absolutely. You know, like people, you know, if you've got something good to offer, right?
yeah.
People will listen. You know,
Yeah.
you will find an audience for it, and I think it's really important.
Yeah. So, well, thank you for your insights and information. And if someone wanted to contact you as a broker to find out what you do and how you do it, and maybe how you could help them, how would they get in touch with you?
Oh, well, they can have a look at my website, which is roncovenetz.com.au, and I'll spell it. It's CHOWANETZ.com.au, or email ronc@moneyresources.com. And like I said, I'm happy to help anyone, any questions.
Yeah.
We're here to help. Whether we do the business or not is immaterial, but we're just here to help people and put them on the right track. And
Yeah,
thank you
which
for
is
your time,
awesome.
Donna. I really appreciate the opportunity to have 20
Thank
or
you.
30
And
minutes to chat.
I'll actually put your details in the bottom of my podcast so that
Yep.
people can spell it correctly and get hold of you. So look, thank you so much. It's been awesome, and I'm sure we will talk again soon.
Thanks,
Thank you
Donna.
for tuning in, everyone. Talk soon.